Welcome to another episode of Wildlife Photo Chat Weekly. We are going to talk about what we've been shooting the last few days here around Sanibel and
in Florida.
And then we have a user submitted question.
Yeah, we have a topic. Yeah, somebody sent me the other day.
Listener.
Yeah.
I said user. That was
how
wrong.
would we pronounce?
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline? Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I would go with that. Jacqueline Bronte. Bront. Sorry about the pronunciation, but anyway.
Or Jocelyn?
That's what I was wondering. Jacqueline, thank you so much for listening to the show, number one. And thanks for submitting this. And let's see. She said, you were discussing how participants seem to love the workshop. I remember. She was listening to the Ben Newt episode. And she said, you were discussing how participants seem to love the workshop, however, they only post 3 images. And she said she's been a workshop participant like that, sometimes even worse. My challenge is I get home with several hundred keepers. That's when progress grinds to a halt. So basically it's all about the challenge of
going on an amazing workshop.
And then sharing stuff.
Yeah, taking thousands of photos and then being stuck with, oh my gosh, like the paralyzing, how do I cull through these? How do I go through and
so there's a little bit more to that I'll go ahead and bring up when we get to that topic. But to start out, we'll just talk about, I guess it's only been 2 days since we last recorded.
Was it?
Yeah, something like that, I think. Maybe three.
Yeah.
But we went out and did some shooting. Yeah. Because for the first bit, I think we talked about that we're here, we're kind of stuck.
Yes, we had a tire issue, so we didn't want to drive on our tire, and we had just gotten back from 2 weeks in Costa Rica, where we had done a lot of shooting. So honestly, it was nice to not be shooting.
Yeah, kind of tired anyway.
It was nice to just not have to pick up the camera.
No, I completely agree.
Have a few days of just chill and enjoying the beach and going for little walks and just relax and be able to well, you probably had already gone through all your Costa Rica photos, but I hadn't had the chance to even look at them yet. So. And
you did get a chance then at that point.
I did during those 3 days of just chill mode.
That's the other thing, the other part about the nonstop shooting.
Yeah, if you're shooting all the time, you have no chance to look at all your photos.
I don't get to look at them. I don't get to see them, appreciate them. I'm usually more excited close to when I shot them, which is kind of fun. I like that.
Yeah, there is a different take there. Like sometimes, which I don't know if you want to talk about it now or later.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Like sometimes, I feel like I would rather wait a few days and look at all the photos and just enjoy the experience of the shoot. Mm-hmm. Or even wait a few months,
Yeah.
But that was more me in the past of waiting a few months. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Because it's sometimes you come off the high of a shoot and you don't want to ruin the experience of the shoot. Like you had such a good time, had such a great morning out, and it was oh my God, that was such a fun experience. And then the photos could be a letdown.
Has that really happened where it
it
what if you a little bit?
Blow all the focus on you had this great shot, you had you had this great moment where Red Sheikah was walking right past you and it was killer light, backlight, whatever, and bokeh bubbles were in front of you and you saw it right in front of you.
Yeah.
But then you go to import the photos and none of the ones that you had were either in focus or maybe the exposure was way off or whatever it was, and then it's so you have that moment in your brain, but you don't have the photo to prove it.
I guess I feel like in the past, that was something that could bother me, but in the last 5 years of shooting, it doesn't bother me. I could blow everything, and it's okay.
Yeah, but think about it as maybe a workshop participant.
Sure, that's different.
Yeah.
Talking about that concept when we get to that,
Okay.
And real quick before, I just want to mention for anybody audio listening, this is another one. We're doing another one because it's really convenient for us to record the video of this.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch us chat, head on over to YouTube and check that out, or just the website. I'll have them both on the same podcast page, so you can listen or watch there as well. But I just wanted to mention that.
In a beautiful place here, oceanfront.
It's really beautiful.
We've just been oceanfront for a week here.
I mean,
Sanibel Island, so we may never leave. Well,
so
tomorrow
grateful.
We have to leave. So
grateful for this, yeah. But going back to that, I feel like you are also a person that wouldn't be horribly disappointed. If you, this morning, we had beautiful light, we had great birds all around us. If you blew every shot, you wouldn't care.
No.
So I feel like...
But I also feel like that comes with time.
Sure.
I feel like that comes with time shooting, and also like time shooting maybe the same birds. So it's like, okay, if you already have shots of that bird.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like then it makes it easier to, like for those moments that you missed, to be less devastating.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
and like you can just enjoy the experience of, oh, that was a really fun morning out, even if you didn't get anything.
Yeah, totally.
You know, or like, oh, it was so fun to just watch those birds dancing around and fishing and whatever.
Yeah, and I guess I would say I feel lucky now that I'm at a point.
At a point, yeah.
In my photography path that I'm just always excited to see the images.
Right.
Even if they didn't work out, that's fine.
Right.
And also I feel like, and I feel like you're there as well.
Yeah.
That, well, this part of it, if you're good enough and skilled enough that you're never going to blow everything. Like you'll have some out of focus images and so a couple of missed moments, like, oh, I wish I would have got that. But there's already so many other good things in there. It's like, who cares that I missed that, you know?
Right.
Whereas like, and it is, I'd say it's a mentality thing, right?
Sure.
You can, as a person, as a photographer, be somebody that when you're going through the images, you concentrate on all the missed stuff.
Right.
Versus
or like, oh, I've got like a great.
Look at all the stuff I did get.
Yeah. And like really,
okay, I missed a few. Whatever.
How many do you really need of the
that
same
too.
bird, of the same moment?
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, okay, I have this great moment of this bird ruffled out. I have this great one with there's more colored in the sky, and okay, perfect. I've got 2 shots that are great. I don't need 50. You know, from the same morning. Like if I've got 2, like why do I need 50?
And even if it was like the most amazing moment that I blew focus, I had some of them this morning, just glancing through. I've done a real quick glance through.
Yeah.
And it was like a couple of times when they were like this one tricolored was like running, doing the crazy wings and chasing stuff. And I like just blew focus or my shutter speed was too slow or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, those were like the best action moments, you know?
Sure.
And I have others that show it similar, but not quite as interesting or extreme with the position or whatever. And, for me, I'm just like, all right, I missed it, so, you know, we'll go try again, or
and then
whatever.
You know, we'll have another opportunity down the line in the future.
Or even if I don't, like, okay.
You've seen it in the past.
I've seen it in the past, and so, it is definitely a mentality thing, and I do agree with you that it certainly helps the longer you do it.
Especially you, like, based on the amount of times that you've shot, you know, both for yourself and also, like, just with clients and stuff, like, I mean, I can't even imagine how many times you've been out shooting.
Just shot so much, you know. But I will say, as where I am now, I'm always more excited to look at my images and just see what was happening. And like we talked about in the last one, especially in Costa Rica, be able to look at the photos, iterate on the different creative stuff we were trying, and sort of, you know, try to perfect, especially new techniques and stuff like that, you know.
Well, so getting back to what we've been up to in the last few days, because it's only been a few days, I guess was the first shoot the Burrowing Owls?
It was. That was the first thing we did once we got the tire fixed that evening.
Well, I guess before that we did take the cameras out like really quick, just back here.
I took like 10 photos.
Yeah,
a couple of cool ones.
Yeah, with the, like there was some ruddy turnstones out there and black-bellied plovers. And
we took the donut bocca lens.
Did we? Or you did?
I did, yeah.
I took the plana. It's my favorite shorebird lens lately. So I kept a few from that actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, did
you? Very few.
Yeah, you got a bald eagle out here on that snag over
right
there.
Out there.
With a donut bocca, and it actually looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you keep it?
I did.
Yeah.
I kept one of them.
See? Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty cool. What was I going to say?
Burrowing Owls.
Oh, right. So that was the first thing we shot.
Basically since getting back from Costa Rica.
Right.
You know? So, and it was cool. I mean, we kind of came over here because of them. Because we kept saying we wanted to shoot them together.
That, and then we wanted to shoot this beach that's nearby also.
Yeah, Bunce Beach.
Yeah, because I've never had a good experience. I've only been there like a couple of times, maybe twice, and I never had a good experience there. But you love that beach, and you're like, we got to go back so that way you can try and have a good experience there.
Yeah, definitely.
You wanted to redeem the beach.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So but when we were on the other coast of Florida, before Costa Rica, we were kind of thinking like, what do we want to do when we get back?
Yeah.
And we both realized we
haven't shot.
Photographed burrowing owls separately.
But never together.
In Cape Coral and around Cape Coral, but never together. And we're both like, it's been a few years each.
Yeah.
I think it was...
like 5 years for me. It was either 4 or 5.
Was it 2 or 3? I looked
Yeah,
back.
I think 3 for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I had been here photographing them. So we
Which
both
is
thought...
a long time.
Yeah, so we both thought it'd be fun to come back and do that.
Yeah.
And it was. I feel like that one outing was enough for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it would be fun if they had babies or something to go back, but that's probably not going to be for another month or a couple of weeks at least.
Yeah, because we're end of March right now,
yeah.
27th. Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, who knows whenever they have babies.
There's
probably
some,
a
few.
Like having them now, and who knows, there's all around the area. So,
yeah.
But we're not like, here. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we shot them a little bit different than you have in the past. Not that you haven't done that, but
I
concentrating on it.
Yeah, we were shooting them like at night or after sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah, we went to this very urban spot on purpose.
Right.
I don't know if you guys can hear it. This starling has been making some incredible sounds around here, or I don't know if it's the same one, but
there's
some
a
of these
couple
starlings.
around.
Yeah, there's some great crested flycatchers chasing each other.
Yeah.
Been hearing them a lot. So yeah, there's this urban park I had found back in the time when I was doing my workshops back here, and it was always really fun. I didn't even I used to shoot it just because the birds were incredibly friendly. They're usually friendly around here.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But a lot of the places I would take people were on the outskirts of town where there weren't a lot of people, and they were skittish. They were a little bit more like you had to really give them time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It gave us more natural scenery and backgrounds. And no houses around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like legit, you couldn't just walk up to them. They would like go shoot down the burrow and hide and be freaked out, and you could tell.
Yeah, it's funny because you said like, Cape Coral, or like shooting the burrowing owls in like a more urban place, and I'm like, pretty much every time I've shot the burrowing owls, it's been in more urban.
Yeah, I guess, and so I've always worked like crazy to be the opposite because people were paying and flying in from all over the country.
Then they wanted
to work
more
with me.
like natural.
Yeah,
stuff.
they didn't really necessarily want that.
Yeah.
But this one park still had opportunities, and we took advantage of that, of shooting little tiny pockets and angles that made it look natural anyway, without the urban stuff around it. But it was, I mean, it's right in the corner of a little city park.
Yeah.
There's, basketball courts and people walking their dogs and their kids right next to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like somebody walked up with a dog on a leash.
Yeah, and the owl just didn't even duck under.
Flinch.
Yeah.
Like didn't even go in the burrow,
Yeah.
So it's a very urban spot, and in all directions there's houses and lights and stuff when it gets dark.
Right.
And my experience there has been, once it gets close to dusk and dark, just like all the burrowing owls, they get really active and start coming out. And they're a lot of fun. So yeah, we went there just for that and stayed, and I think we had a great time.
Yeah, and so at first I was shooting the Plano, the 135, 1.8, but quickly realized like it just wasn't enough focal length.
Yeah,
and
for that spot.
Yeah, because you can't get too close to the owls. Like obviously you want to respect the distance that is marked off for them.
Yeah.
And their space and everything. So so I used the 400-4.5. And that was perfect.
I was shooting the 400-2.8 pretty much the entire time. I took a couple with your 135 millimeter.
Yeah.
At one point, but it was tough. I agree.
So you do use the 135.
Yeah. And then did either of us try? We had the 70-200 2.8 out with us. I don't think we ever switched to it.
Maybe like tried it, but I mean, I guess not if I tried the 135 and I wasn't liking that.
Yeah. So. So the 400 millimeter seemed to be the right focal length there. Which is, again, it's so funny. It felt like...
Yeah, because you punched into 560 at one point, and you were like, the bird was cut off, It was like...
too much, yeah. And so it's so funny to think that I exclusively would go shoot there at 500 millimeter.
500 f4,
all the time. It's just so interesting how it's all about your perspective and what you've been used to.
Yeah.
With what feels... like enough focal length, too much, not enough, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And experience level and just like how you like to shoot.
Right.
Well,
I feel like in this specific case, like with the urban environment and so much stuff around, like shooting the wider stuff is, unless you're trying to include that for a specific
I did it
scene,
once.
like you were showing the house and stuff.
Yeah.
What are all those flying out there?
That's a lot of big birds. Maybe gulls? I don't know. It's a big flock.
Weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We can't help but be distracted.
Yeah. We shouldn't record this outside.
Fish crow.
Yeah. So it's like, unless you were trying to do that, then the other stuff in the background is kind of more distracting, is what
Agreed.
I was experiencing.
I felt the same.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, you want to include like the lights that are in the background, like either from cars or from house lights, kind of like using those string lights from houses, or either just lights
on the side of their house.
On the side of the house and that sort of thing.
One house had one blue light on a palm tree, one red light on a palm tree.
Yeah.
Those made for some like real moody backgrounds for us.
Yeah. But you don't necessarily want like the whole house, because then, or the garage or whatever, the roof or whatever, because that could be distracting.
It was also a really interesting lesson for me, or a reminder, I should say, not necessarily a lesson, of how much practice makes challenging shooting conditions feel either really challenging and hard or not that challenging and hard. And so my recollection of every time I was there and shooting in the night, I was always like, wow, I can't believe like I'm shooting these slow shutter speeds. I'm down to like, 30th of a second, 20th of a second, whatever.
Yeah.
And like pushing the ISO to the max and blah, blah, blah. And like now, like this last outing there, everything felt like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
It did not feel like a struggle.
I feel like you've been doing that.
I've been shooting these slower shutter speeds for many years now.
Yeah.
Also, I had a lens that was one stop faster.
Right.
Makes a difference.
Right.
Like for this kind of shooting, it was another example.
Where you're like, oh, I like the 400
The 400-2.8 just shined
there.
It was so good, and it made every shot so easy. And then I remember looking at them right away, and I was like,
and you're like, oh, dang, these are crisp.
Yeah. And so there's another whole conversation there. Of, like we talked about it that day when I was looking at them, like the sharpness of that lens. That lens is just by far the sharpest lens we have in the kit.
Like, especially
I mean, maybe not over the 135. That one's, every time I see that, I feel like I'm seeing the same sharpness, but everything's always smaller in frame with that for the most part. Right?
Yeah, unless you're like really close to it.
Correct.
Yeah.
This 400-2.8 for the most part is always, not always, but it's easier to shoot frame filling, close to frame filling stuff.
Right.
So when I see
like
photos from it,
whatever.
The detail on it and the sharpness, I'm like, oh my gosh. And it really does like wow me in that moment.
Right.
Because especially after Costa Rica, shooting all this slow shutter motion stuff, the manual focus donut bokeh lens, like none of that stuff is ever like tack sharp. Even the tack sharp is like, it's passable,
or it's more grainy or whatever.
Yeah, and so after seeing a lot of that, and even the 100 to 400, I would call that...
I don't know. I feel like your shots with the 100 to 400 are really good.
That's what I'm saying. I would call that sharp, but if you side-by-sided with the 400-2.8, it's just sharper. But beyond looking at it on the screen, zooming into 100% and going, wow, that's sharp, it does nothing for the photo.
Right.
It adds zero to the photo to me after the fact. Like to view the photo on its own, because as soon as I zoom out to full screen, I can't see that additional sharpness anymore.
No,
then
not
it looks
the sharpness, but like there's something to maybe the background, like the depth of field or that.
Sure, that dreaminess, that's different, right? But if I just talk sharpness, which I think is such a a quality of a photo that 90% of wildlife photographers are like, that's my top level, like that's the most important thing. Like they put it, if you had to hierarchy a bunch of different qualities of a photo, sharpness is going to go to the top so much for so many people.
I feel like you should put out a poll, like what is the most important thing? Sharpness, depth of field, like, I don't know, what else would it be?
I know, but you know what?
Important?
I feel like...
Like color depth, is that a thing? Like,
sure. Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects, right? But I feel like so many, if you put out the poll like that, so many photographers would answer aspirationally of like what they want versus the reality of what they're actually concentrating on. I mean, you see it all the time. Why do you think topaz exists? And like separate from the denoise, right? This sharpening, all this AI sharpened stuff.
Right.
Like it all exists because everybody's like sharpness, 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 sharpness.
Right.
Like just to the max all the time. And in my experience, and I'm not saying this is the right way or wrong way, it's just this is how it feels for me. In my experience, it was cool to zoom in on a 400-2.8 image to 100% and go, wow, look at that. Also with the Z9 I was shooting, so the 45 megapixel thing, tons of resolution.
Well, it's like detail and sharpness, right?
It is.
It's not just like
a combo with that setup.
Sharpness, right?
So I zoom in and I'm like, whoa, that's like really sharp. That is neat.
Yeah.
But then that's it. That's where it ends for me.
Right.
Is like to go on the computer, zoom in, say that's neat.
And you're also looking at it on a big screen.
I was looking on the 27-inch monitor.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but then I zoom back out, and the sharpness, other than like, is it in focus or not, is irrelevant.
Right.
You know, like if it was in focus, any lens we have from not the specialty lenses, but any standard lens we have in our kit, which range from, what's the cheapest standard lens we have in there? That's not a specialty lens. Maybe the 50 mil like macro. Yeah, exactly.
Or something?
Yeah, so anything from the $300 to $500 range up to the $14,000 range.
Yeah.
Once you zoom out and take the photo in for what it is, like its entirety, the added sharpness from the 400-2.8 to me means nothing.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really interesting, and I wonder how many other people would recognize that as well, because like they don't get the chance to ever zoom in, so all they're ever seeing from my photos is half of them, or more than half, on a phone.
Right, which is so
So all that sharpness and detail is completely lost.
Yeah.
Now it's even more irrelevant.
Which crazy, like this, like I don't know, 27-inch screen down to like, you know, little.
It's just nuts. And so again, and I've talked about it so many times on here, but I always want to bring it up again, just for anybody that's new, beginner, intermediate, that is like maybe focused too much, or let me use the word obsessed, because I don't want to get it confused with focus in these terms here, right? But if you're obsessed with sharpness, I think just let that go. Beyond it being like an in-focus image that looks reasonably sharp when viewed full screen, not zoomed in. Like that's the thing. I've worked with people. And they're like, but this isn't sharp. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if I zoom into 100% and pixel peep it, then okay, I can see there's a little bit of movement there. But when I view it as a whole, I can't even tell.
Right.
And I'm like, you were ready to like throw this photo out.
Right.
And it's an amazing moment and everything.
Right.
And I say that being a person that was there.
Right.
I used to be that exact way. Like I had a period of, I'd say 3 years when I first got my 500 f4.
Okay.
Because the lens I had prior wasn't always the sharpest.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I got a 500 f4 and everything was consistently sharp as long as I nailed focus.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it was like, if that thing wasn't like perfect on the eye.
Then you were just like,
perfect
on the eye? I feel like
if
mine
it was
aren't
just
ever.
Like a little bit
not
off.
Ever, but like.
I was like, delete.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the dumbest metric to judge this photo on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it was like some tangible thing that I could point out where I did right or wrong. You know? And I think like before I had a really good eye and a good sense for what makes a photo great.
Yeah, well I feel like if you're.
I latched onto that.
I feel like if you're shooting more, I think it depends how you're shooting. Like if you're shooting more of like a documentary style, or like if it's more about, you know, the bird and the bird ID or something, if it's like rather than more creative or artistic, you know, like if you're shooting more of like creative and artistically, the sharpness of the bird's eye, in my opinion, is like, okay, does it really matter that much?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're shooting for a book, maybe if you're making like a bird ID book, then maybe you need the bird's eye.
I guess I would argue even for those types of photographers, the more frame filling, portrait style photographers, like it doesn't matter anyway if it's like the tiniest bit off.
Yeah. Like maybe if you're
that 100% zoom, checking all the detail, it's just, other than going, wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
I don't think it does anything.
Yeah.
So huge side.
Anyway, that was like, that was really way off. What were we talking about? Burrowing owls?
And just the fact that I really did enjoy shooting that 400-2.8 again.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And
I was on the 400-4.5 and you're like, do you want to shoot this? And I was like, no.
Yes, you didn't want that heavy
No,
thing.
thanks. So anyway, we did that. That was fun.
It was really fun. We shot a lot of night images. I'm happy with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then that was the other thing that I found interesting as a whole, just comparing it to my past experiences at that exact spot, is it just felt easy. And I think it's a combination of the gear certainly helped, no doubt. That was my first time ever shooting a mirrorless camera there too. I think, or no, I shouldn't say that. I had the Z9 with a 500 f4, but so all native mirrorless stuff. That was my first time shooting there. So that helped, but just my experience and comfort level of being able to shoot at these slow shutter speeds and just consistently get stuff, you know?
Right.
That made a big difference. And it just made the shoot feel so easy. I was like, wow, this is really just a joy shooting at night instead of always thinking,
like struggling or something.
Oh my gosh, this is so hard.
Right.
That's how it used to feel.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting comparison there.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we did it. It was fun.
Yeah,
Got
it was
some
lots
really
of fun.
creative, fun images there to share.
Yeah. And then the next morning, we went out to Bunch Beach.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, we saw like 7 reddish egrets
All at once.
fly into this little tide pool, you call it. And that was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that many reddish egrets in one time.
Me neither. That was the most by far.
That was crazy. And then it was like
and no
beautiful.
White dwarf. What a bummer.
Oh, I know. I've never seen one ever.
Oh.
Never ever. I've always wanted to see one.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
I think you would be so in love with it. Like it would blow, especially when they're in breeding.
If it's breeding, it has
With the long feathers, but also the same pink blue bill.
I know. Listen, I know what it looks like.
I know you've seen it.
I know what it looks like.
I can't wait.
I hope I'm there. Attack and die.
I hope I'm there the day that you get to see it, because it would just be so fun to watch you enjoy that bird. Yeah.
Anyway, he was not there.
So, but we had 7 reddish.
7 reddish, and it was like beautiful pastel colors, like pinks in the sky, which, you know, if you haven't known this about Ray, he prefers sunlight to pinks and pastels, which is clearly a flaw in his character.
That's not accurate.
Yeah, it is. You told me this.
I told you with certain backgrounds.
You told me like...
It was applicable to certain backgrounds.
No, it was like just point blank.
No, it's not point blank.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're like, the sun's going to come soon. It's
I know. I was
exciting.
looking forward to it because I was shooting certain angles that I was just like, these look blah. They were just so flat lit. But there was one sweet spot that had the color that looked awesome. I agree.
Ray's got a little bit of a flaw in his character. Because obviously...
I think I would actually say you are correct. I do like the sunlight more.
That's what you said. I know. So I'm just telling the audience that
close.
They should know that.
They're close.
They should know that.
It's not like, the pastel colors.
Yeah, they should know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I obviously prefer the
flat, boring light. Got it.
Dawn and dusk. So the blues and pinks.
Yeah.
Blues and pinks of the day.
Yeah.
And Ray prefers the gold.
I do. Well, I like the drama that comes with it.
He wants the gold.
The angles. You can play more angles with it.
He just loves gold.
I feel like... Do you feel like the pastel colors limit your... like the direction you can shoot a little bit more than sunlight, like early, like the first bit of sun?
I don't know. Sun can get harsh real quick.
I'm just talking when it's really good.
Real quick.
In that first 15 minutes of direct golden sun. I feel like you can shoot any angle. Front lit, side lit, back lit, and it all looks amazing.
Maybe like first 5 minutes.
And the pastel is like, it's a wide window.
Yeah, I feel like you can shoot any direction in the pastel. I feel like you can.
You couldn't this morning. That one background where the mangroves were and everything.
I mean, why would you shoot right into the mangroves?
Well, if you had the nice sun, you'd underexpose, get a nice dark background, bird pops out, boom. We did it later with the ibis. That's why you shoot in the mangroves. So, hey, there's different tastes and different preferences. Nothing wrong with any of it.
Yes, but nothing is better than those pinks. Nothing is better. Anyway.
All right. So we had all those reddish egrets.
The day before, because going back to the ibis, going back to the reddish egret, we had these 7 reddish egret.
Yeah.
And they only stayed for a few minutes.
Yeah, they didn't stay real long.
And there was one, I feel like, out of the 7 that had like, bam, on point.
His colors.
Really nice breeding plumage. Yeah. And the rest of them had the breeding, but not really a lot.
I don't know I didn't get to really check all of them. I don't know if there was 1 or 2 others that maybe had something decent, but that one that was like, the close ones that we were shooting, there was mostly pale, and then that one that
was like, woof, I'm here. Yeah,
the colors and the feathers.
A little bit challenging to shoot with these pools, because there's sandbars and that sort of thing. But it was fun, and I haven't seen a reddish egret.
And what did you shoot with? You started that one with the 400-4.5 again.
I started with the 400-4.5, and then we swapped like mid there while we were there. Yeah. Because I wanted to include these pinks.
Yeah.
And you had the 1-4, so I switched the 1-4. Oh no, I guess we swapped.
Are you still coming around to that lens?
Yeah, it's still not my favorite.
No. Okay.
But yeah.
But in that moment, it was the right call.
Yeah.
You were struggling to get the colors because
I wanted
the birds
colors.
were too close.
The 400 was, it wouldn't have given me the colors. I think we switched actually before that moment. We were shooting some tricolored herons before that.
Yeah, but it was all about trying to get those colors.
I wanted the colors, yeah.
And the prime lens.
It didn't.
The birds were too close, and you could have backed up, but then the sandbars and mud that were around there would have been much more in focus. So it wouldn't have looked as nice to back up, I think, to try and get them smaller in frame and show more sky. And still, it doesn't matter. Like, you were never going to get as much sky as you would by just zooming that lens out, the zoom lens.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like we only had like a few minutes with those reddish egrets.
And then I don't remember what we started. They dispersed. A bunch of them left entirely.
Yeah.
And then a handful of them were like around.
Went to this other pools.
And
so we
tried getting near them, but then I don't think we had any luck.
No, we didn't really have any success.
They kept bouncing.
So then
we stopped chasing.
Yeah. And then we just went and did some shorebirds, like Dunlin and
short-billed dowitchers, or
I don't know which one.
Yep.
Yeah, some
short-billed dowitchers.
Dunlin.
Turnstones.
Sanderlings.
There was a semi-palm plover came in, I think, at one point. Yeah, we found this one little raised sandbar with like a hill.
Yeah.
That was really fun to shoot over.
With. Yeah, so we did that.
And we stayed relatively clean and dry that first day.
Yeah.
And then today happened. And it was not that.
Yeah. So you decided to take out the housing.
I was originally going to do that the other day, but I think it was just we shot at night, got back here late, parked, got up early. I was kind of tired. And I was just like, I don't feel like doing the whole, set up the housing. I knew I have to clean it.
Which it only
I know
takes like a few minutes.
I know, but it's more like
like 2 minutes.
It's more like what happens. I know I'm going to get more wet and messy and sandy.
Yeah.
I got to clean up. Like, it's just a lot after it. And I knew we had some other stuff. It was an errand day with laundry.
We got to do laundry. Yeah. We ended up,
So it just was like, it's funny. Like legitimately, I chose what to shoot based on what I felt like dealing with later at the end of it.
I mean, I feel like that's valid.
It is, but it's so funny. Like, that is 10 years ago, if you would have told me I would have been doing that, I'd have been like, oh, you loser, I'd been like, you baby, like, do it. You got to do what you got to do to get the shot. Like, who cares? Get messy, like, whatever.
When you knew you would have another day or 2 days to do something else.
Yeah, I didn't know if at that point, I don't know if we knew we were staying here, but we thought we were. And so it wasn't a guarantee, but I was also completely fine with that.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like getting that dirty and messy that morning, and dealing with it.
I think it's fine.
But I do too. It's just so funny how there was, again, a period in my path, my photography path, where it was like, it did not matter what was happening.
All or nothing.
I was all in all the time.
And
now I'm not, But I do appreciate for myself that there are times where I am.
Yeah.
And today was another one. Like today it was just like the next day. I knew we had time today.
Sure.
It was, we got to bed earlier last night.
Yeah.
It was an easier wake up. And I was just like, today, like we have the time, I'm gonna use the housing.
Sure.
And so I did.
Yeah.
I ended up doing the 300 f4, the PF, the only f-mount lens we have left.
Yeah.
Only because that's the only thing we can fit in that housing with a long lens.
Well, we gotta get that.
We could do 70-2.
200 f2 lens.
I know that would never fit in there. I keep forgetting that we can do the 70-200.
Yeah.
With the 1.4, which is 280.
Yeah, 280 f4.
Yeah. So that's 300 f4.
So what's the difference?
I don't know.
What's the difference?
Yeah, nothing.
So why not?
The 300 f4 is lighter.
Yeah. So why would you take the other one?
Well, just because it's native glass, I feel like the focus tends to be a little bit better.
Oh.
Maybe.
But then you're adding the teleconverter.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to affect it as much. I don't know.
Well, anyway.
Something to test. And then you shot
the 135.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you did with it today?
I think I did great.
Yeah. Nice. I feel like today we did much better getting closer to stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there was an obvious reason for that.
We were in the water.
Yeah, but I think there was another part to it.
What was it?
We didn't move.
I was going to say we weren't talking.
We stayed. We had a little incident the first day. We
don't have to talk about it.
I think so. It's funny to share. So Emilie and I were, to their credit, there was another pair of photographers there, a man and a woman, and they were there before us just a little bit. The one of them had set up on the one corner of this tide pool. It was a pretty big pool.
Yeah,
I don't
huge
feel like
pool.
we encroached their space at all.
No.
Like if anybody had gone that close to me, it wouldn't have bothered me even a little bit. It's not like we sat, like crawled up right next to him or something.
No.
Like, because that's always rude.
Yeah.
I find anyway. So we had a decent space there. We both crawled up and were low, like we were crouched, right?
Yeah. Yes.
We were on our hands and knees, just staying low.
Yeah.
They were up on their knees, like sitting up, up a little bit taller than us, which whatever. Like I didn't bother me. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So one of them was there. The second we moved in, we're sitting there. This was when all the reddish egrets were there.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was tricolored and little blues, and there was even a yellow legs mixed in, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, there was like just tons of
birds. A bunch of little peeps, shorebirds were in there.
And there was, other waiters too, right? Yeah, yeah.
The other photographer ended up coming up next to, I don't know if it was their, whatever.
Friend?
Whoever they were shooting with, right? And came in there. And Emilie and I were just talking to each other about the birds. Like, we were excited. Like, look at all these reddish egrets. Oh, my gosh. Oh, look, there's the one that looks really good color.
Like,
I hope he comes closer. We're just talking like that. And guys, I would say,
like whisper
at
level.
This volume, probably less.
No, lower, yeah. It was like, oh, I can't believe this reddish egret.
Yeah.
I hope he comes closer. Like, oh.
And then we overhear one of them say,
I wish they would stop talking.
Something about us to be like basically like shushing us, like we were being too loud, and I reacted poorly. Yeah. I was like out loudly at that point. I was like, did we just get shushed? And you were like, I don't know what you said.
No, I said something like, you could just ask us to be quiet.
You said that, and then I was like, then I heard. Then I was getting obnoxious at that point, which not my best moment. I really wish I would have reacted better. Yeah. I think I said something along the lines of, now we can be louder because that was pretty obnoxious, so maybe I will be, or something like that.
I don't know.
And then I heard their shutter going off because they had a mirrorless, but I could hear they had that sound turned on. And we just always shoot silently. Again, not a big deal. I don't think it bothers anything. Yeah. But I was just like, oh, that shutter sound, man, I think it's going to scare the birds away. Maybe we should turn that off,
Yeah.
So we were pretty rude back. Not our best moment. And then shortly after, all these reddish egrets did fly away. I think we have enough experience to say, like, I know
No, it wasn't us talking.
Like, because we didn't even move.
Yeah.
And at that point, actually, when the birds did go away, like, we had quieted down. Because we were sitting there for another minute or so after that.
Yeah.
And so, but we were both just like, we just couldn't believe it. It's a public beach. It's not like we were going, oh my God. We weren't screaming and yelling,
No, it was just strange.
It was a little awkward. And then we quickly moved away and started doing some other stuff. But the funny
thing is, then when we did go to the next pool to try and find, or to go and shoot that reddish egret again, and you were like, oh, I'm gonna go from this angle to try and minimize this whatever sandbar, and I was like, oh, to minimize it like this, and I moved my hands up like to try and get and I totally scared him like
with that
from my movement because I was just being dumb. Like,
but it wasn't sound like
no, it wasn't sound. No, it was like
when those
no, it was my movement like this. I was just like whoop.
I just feel like when there's shorebirds and wading birds around you, I mean, we've done it so many times in your marshes in Hilton Head. Yeah. Like, when they see you there, they're aware. Yeah. Talking, like, unless you, like, made a loud clap.
I would, like, sing in the marsh. Like, yeah, no, it's like, not. And first of all, we were, like, whispering, but.
They just don't care.
Anyway.
And, like, I guess maybe we were ruining their solitude in nature.
I feel like, it would have been nice to just be like, hey, I'd really like some silence. If you guys could like quiet down, that'd be nice. And we responded poorly, so that's on us.
Yes, I agree. We responded poorly, but it was like it's a public beach. I would never tell anybody else to shut up. I've had people come up to me with a freaking full-on boombox going with music. Yeah. And I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to tell them to turn it off. Right. They're allowed to be there just like I am. Yeah. Yeah. Like that's the nature of it's frustrating sometimes, but that's the nature of shooting in public space. Right. And
then we had another interesting scenario on the beach here where there was a photographer shooting.
Yeah, that was another perfect example.
Yeah, really bizarre. Like a photographer was trying to shoot landscape at sunset and was like
on a tripod.
Yeah, visibly like huffing and puffing when people were walking by. And it was like...
This beach is packed all the time.
Yeah,
it's Sanibel Island. If you're not familiar with it, it's like the shell collecting capital of Florida, I think.
Tons of shells.
There's from sunrise to sunset, nonstop stream of people up and down this beach.
And
just combing the beach for shells. Yeah. And they're walking all over. And this guy plunked his tripod down and expected nobody to walk in front of him. Yeah. And we're like, what are you thinking, dude?
Yeah, it was bizarre. And so we just felt really weird to walk by. We couldn't.
And we wanted to walk that way, but we respected it. Yeah, we were nice. We just stayed there. But if he wasn't there, we would have kept walking there. But it's like
bizarre.
It's really bizarre.
Yeah. So I guess,
some interesting behavior here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where to go next. I guess this morning, back to this morning.
Yeah.
That was what I was saying. We stayed in one spot.
Yes.
Yesterday we were much more moving around, trying to get near the birds.
Yeah,
And we were being, doing our normal cautious approach, stay low, slow.
Yeah.
But they were still just like, I don't want to do that close.
Yeah.
Versus we stayed there and everything flew to us this morning.
Yeah.
They were walking almost on top of you.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do in the marsh too.
Totally.
I would go in, go and get in my spot where I kind of had a view of everything in there, and then just wait for the birds to come in and come around. It's
the hardest thing to do when
you just have to be patient.
Sitting there and seeing, the bird just flew over there.
Yeah.
Another one just flew in over there.
Yeah.
There's one back here behind me, and you're sitting there sometimes with nothing in your pool.
Right.
And I've done it. I've done it with clients there.
Yeah.
I've had clients, and I just know, and it's so, like, especially with a paying client.
Right.
And I'm like,
you just gotta wait.
I know I want to go try and get them something right now, but let's just sit. Like, there's been birds in this pool already.
Right.
I know they will come back, and you stay. And like, what tends to also happen when in a busier place with other photographers is they all chase the stuff around and push them. And they eventually come back to where you are.
Right. Yeah.
And you're already laid down.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
You're
and then when the birds come in like that, we have the experience we had today. They just come so close.
I mean, yeah, the one,
threat.
There was like, I think it was tricolored heron that. He came so close. He was like, I don't know. I was actually doing video, and then I realized he was so close, and I was like, I got to get some photos. And he came so close, and then he eventually like flew to my other side.
Yeah.
Because he was so close that he was like, maybe I shouldn't walk like on top of this person, like I don't know, on top of this blob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a reddish egret did come in.
Yep.
After that.
Like multiple came in.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like one came in, and then
in that pool.
Yeah, and then later on. Before we left, remember there was
another spot, but I'm just saying while we're in this one pool.
Yeah.
Like we never left that pool for probably an hour.
Yeah.
I ended up like swimming across it basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not that deep, but it got deep enough that like.
Well, you had the housing too, so you didn't have to worry about.
I was just floating the thing across.
Yeah, it was easy.
I went over and shot some short-billed dowitchers, really nice, and I did a lot of like really submerging the thing, so I'm anxious to look at some of these to see what they look like. I think, they don't look that outwardly different right off the bat, but there's like an extra dreaminess that comes with it, and a minimization of any of that mud and sand stuff in the background because the perspective is so low because you're under the water partially.
Yeah.
So I do really like that aspect of shooting that. Plus, just the, not having to worry about anything is just
it's nice.
It's just so freeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really enjoy that. But yeah, I had a blast this morning.
Yeah.
I shot way too many photos.
Yeah, I haven't imported mine, but I was really enjoying the 135, and the look of the 1.8 is just like, I feel like you get just such a nice, it just really smooths things out, and it's just kind of like a dreamy.
Yeah, very cool.
Look to it.
Yeah.
Too. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a great time.
And I feel like I just stayed in the same spot. Like the majority of the time I would just rotate this way if they moved that way, and then rotate this way if they were over there.
Yeah, totally.
And then kind of like, obviously some light is better than others, and you just kind of hope that they go in the one way versus the other, but you still take the photos anyway.
And so we have one more morning here, tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
We're probably going to go back and shoot the same place because it's been productive.
Yeah.
Has it been redeemed for you, Emily?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, no, because I mean, like, when I was here, I think there was, like, no birds. And, I did do a morning here, too, so.
Yeah, must have just been a funky tide or something.
Yeah, it must have been, like,
yeah, because I've done that where I've shown up and it's an off tide and there's just nothing there because there's too much water.
Yeah.
The mud flat's not exposed. So,
yeah. That must
it's the same as, like, the beach in Hilton Head, except everything goes out to that island. But if you're shooting the main area and you can't get out there, you're just like, well, there's no birds here.
Yeah.
Everything's out there.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, I'm curious, what do you plan on shooting? Gear-wise, lens-wise?
I might do the 135 again.
Did you want to try the housing?
I don't know. I might just do the 135
Okay.
again. I guess we could do the 135 in the housing, but
you could, yeah.
I don't know. I might just.
It's just harder to shoot, yeah. I think I'm gonna do. I haven't decided 100%. I'm either gonna do donut bokeh and maybe keep it simple, or I might try.
Unless you wanted the 135, I shouldn't just like scoop it up.
It's not. I don't connect with that lens as much as you. I do like it.
I know.
I have shot it,
it's definitely more like my thing.
I do. I've had fun with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like we both do that with our gear. Like there's
we
lenses we sort of connect with.
Yeah. And like I feel like you connect more with the housing than I do.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. I feel like you've had some fun with it for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure, yeah.
So that's the other option. I might do the dome port on the housing because
and do
some
more
of those,
the wave stuff?
if we have pool, if we can get in a pool like we did today, it was deep enough, and not necessarily the wave stuff.
Oh, the pool
but
stuff.
those wading birds came so close.
Oh, over under?
I feel like I could do some splits in there. I mean, I don't know that there's. I guess the problem is I don't know there's enough interesting thing under the water to make it worthwhile. Yeah. Other than it's like a fun perspective, you know? So I don't know. And if I do, I think I might even try like the 24 to 120 and like maybe like 75-ish millimeters, something, but then that's not why I don't know what to do. I'll probably end up with a donut bokeh just to do something different. But I definitely want to do something totally different than what I was shooting today and the day before. I
don't know. I guess I don't know about the donut bokeh there, like how it would work. But I mean, the donut bokeh worked great in Sebastian, so. Yeah.
It was fun. And I do have to show you, I did glance at some of these photos today.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I was shooting a Willet. And so I had the 300 f4 in, so it was just 300 millimeter prime. And I've been trying to do this thing that you had gotten one shot forever ago.
Yeah.
The first time
I shot the housing in Hilton Head.
You had a tricolored at the time. And like there was
where I was getting smashed by waves.
Yes, we have video.
I literally, the first time I get in the housing and I just like go right in the surf and just get pounded by waves.
And it was cold, we were in dry suits.
Yeah.
It's such a more pleasant experience.
And I was getting it waves to the face. And we were like, oh, don't get your, hands wet and all this stuff. And it was just like, everything. I was just drenched in the beginning. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, now it's like you just go in a bathing suit.
It's beautiful out.
Practically.
The water's warm.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had a shot with it tricolored and you were shooting down a shoreline.
Yeah.
And you could see the kind of like the curl of the wave coming over onto his legs and stuff like that.
I feel like I posted it.
And maybe. I think you did. And I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah.
And it really made me go, ooh, I want a shot with maybe even like a smaller shorebird.
Yeah.
Like shooting down like the barrel kind of a wave crashing on the surf. So I messed with that some today. There was a huge flock of black skimmers and some terns way out. But what I realized is I need to have the bird in the water where the waves are crashing, not up on shore, because then depth of field comes into play and the crashing wave, that rolling wave, is out of focus.
Right.
So they need to be in the water. So then we had a Willet later.
Right.
Right about when we were to leave.
Right.
A Willet and a reddish egret. I got way better stuff with the Willet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I shot some backlit to start out with. The waves that were crashing were giving me sparkly bokeh in the foreground, sometimes over and around the bird.
Okay.
They look really, really neat.
Oh, I gotta see.
And they're kind of random and sporadic.
Okay.
And then I saw that and I'm like, well, all right, maybe I would go do that like the entire time. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like especially when it's like really good golden light.
Well, because I feel like Willets are kind of notorious for that behavior.
That's
they're just
where
like
they
always
feed most of the time.
Yeah, on that shoreline. Kind of. I mean, like, so that's kind of.
So it might be possible. So I might lean that way.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. We'll see. But
and you could do it just like first light too, and get better, maybe quality bokeh and that kind of stuff, and just your favorite golden light.
We have a long drive tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we don't have to do it right away. So I'm just thinking about the time and the cleanup and all that again, and so it might play a role, but we'll see. No. I'm definitely going to shoot something probably different tomorrow. All right, so shall we get to our topic?
Yeah.
I think.
You're going to read the whole thing?
Yeah, I'll read the whole thing. Let me see if I can get this unlocked here. Again, so it's, we'll go with Jacqueline Brandt. So she was listening to the Ben Newt episode. She said, you were discussing how participants seem to love the workshop. However, they only post a handful of images. I have been a workshop participant like that, sometimes even worse. My challenge is I get home with several hundred keepers. That is when the progress grinds to a halt and nothing or very few images get posted. I don't know if you have discussed this debilitating paralysis on one of your podcasts. I love that she called it a debilitating paralysis. And it feels that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And this is why I want to have this conversation with you, because I can talk about it conceptually, but I've not really felt that.
Right.
And I feel like you have to an extent.
Yeah, for
sure.
So
that's why I thought it'd be a great conversation with you.
Right.
So she said, or perhaps you and Brad here's our substitute,
Yeah,
Emily,
the Brad substitute.
can discuss what the heck to do to move past this. I suppose how to identify those standout images. I see some very nice images posted on the internet of a bird in a certain position, and I know I have something very similar, but I didn't think it was worthy to post. I'm my own worst critic. So, yeah, that's a tough thing to deal with.
I feel like it's like a hefty topic with multiple, it's like a multi-layered topic.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
I feel like I want to address the last bit first. Because,
yeah, I thought I'd let you lead this topic.
Oh, I'm the leader.
Yeah.
So the last part was saying that she sees a bunch of images online, and then she's got stuff that are similar, but then she's her own worst critic. Like, she doesn't want to post.
Like, she had already, I get the impression she was saying, like, I already said, like, these aren't great, but then I see other people post them, and I'm like, oh, those are great.
Those are great.
Why don't I
post something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm my own worst critic. So in that one, my response to that is, I keep touching the microphone, so I hope it doesn't make like a noise. Anyway,
right.
Comparison is the thief of joy. And I don't know if that relates, but I feel like it does. Because it's like, if you're comparing your images to the other ones that you see online, then that might take away something from your own images.
I also think it's near impossible to not compare to everybody else's photos that we see on social media.
Sure, unless it's like helping boost your images up, like, oh,
that's inspiration versus
as
comparison.
Inspiration, yeah.
I think they're a little different.
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah, because it's easy to be like, oh, or even like stuff we see in Costa Rica, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we were just in Costa Rica, and you could see other people go to Costa Rica and be like, oh my God, whoa,
yeah,
they got a Kill Bill toucan.
Everybody loves it, and then we come back like, that was the hardest thing we've ever done.
Right? Yeah. Or like, we didn't get, a clean shot of a Kill Bill toucan or something, right? Mm-hmm. And that could take away your joy of shooting in Costa Rica, or you could be like, oh, well, we still got to see these amazing birds. So, I don't know. That's just my take on the end
okay.
bit.
All right.
Do you have a take on that part or no?
Well, as far as like seeing others post stuff that's similar, I think if I'm interpreting what she said correctly.
Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Then I think that all boils down to self-confidence.
Sure.
In your own photography.
Right.
And being willing to just put that out there.
Yeah.
And so I'll share just this. I'll try and do it quickly, but this, yeah, I know, haha. This experience I've had, which was, for some listeners, they might not know if you haven't been following me long enough. I had an Instagram account a long time ago, built it up to around 12,000 followers. Had some stuff in my life, needed to take a break from it all, deleted the account entirely, and then came back to Instagram. That first Instagram account, I was hell-bent on growth. With it. And it was the time when you could actually do certain things a little bit more reliably, I think, and almost guarantee growth. It was when
like
different hashtags and hubs sharing photos were playing. And I paid attention to it a lot. I worked hard on that, trying to grow and get to that magical 10,000 thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the time, that was also when you were allowed to share links.
Yeah. And now like anybody can.
Which is the best. Like, it's a good thing.
It's great. Yeah.
So anyway, I really cared. I paid attention a lot to, what I shared, how I shared it, and getting that growth. And it was all about that growth and everything. And so I would post like the photos I thought would do the best and stuff like that. And I think it all sort of skewed a little bit what I shared and how I shared it.
Yeah.
And then I took, not quite, but roughly a year off of Instagram when I deleted the account, and then came back and started an account from scratch. Granted, I had still had my website going.
Did you have Facebook still?
I had Facebook. I had deactivated for a period of time, but didn't delete. So I was able to reactivate Facebook, still have the following there.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had already kind of established myself as a name, like especially in the local community.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like where I shot in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so I was not a brand new photographer coming back to Instagram. I get that, right?
Yeah.
I had sort of an established following. But I did come back with the new account, and I decided when I was coming back with that account, I was simply just going to share images that really felt wonderful to me.
Right.
Like the images that I was gravitating towards, and I was like, I'm not going to do hashtags other than like the bird, like the accurate ones. I wasn't going to do hub hashtags and trying to get stuff blah 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 followed. I wasn't going to share the closer portraits because they do better. I was just going to share whatever it is I liked. And I also kind of had a mentality of, I know this form factor is different. It's small, it's on the phone, you can't zoom the photos, you can't see them large, but I don't care. If this image looks great on my big screen, which is how I want to consume it, and that's how I get to see it. If it looks good there, it's going, and I like it, I'm sharing it, just as is. I don't care if it's going to fall flat on Instagram. That was my mentality. And so I'm saying all of this because I just shared what I wanted and what was my passion and my love for photography. And the audience seems to have followed that. You know, I felt like by doing that, I built an audience that appreciated me for sharing different stuff, for, you know, not following the trends on Instagram. And while I feel like I didn't maybe grow as fast as I could have if I played the Instagram game. And I could have maybe gotten a bigger audience if I played the Instagram game. Instead, what I got was a more dedicated, committed, interactive audience that appreciated me for sharing what I liked, you know? And that is my suggestion for that sort of feeling of, you know, oh, what am I going to share? Like, should I share it? Do I worry about the audience? And I'm not saying that Jacqueline is saying that in this circumstance, but it feels like maybe that's tied in there a little bit with what she's writing is, you know, she's her own worst critic with the photos, but it's like, is there a fear of like putting this out there and being negatively judged, or it's not going to do as well as others? And then you see somebody else put it and it's like, well, they did fine. And so it's kind of like, well, if you like it, put it out there.
I feel like social media is such a gamble in terms of like how, not like how it'll be received, but like if it'll be received at all. Like nowadays, right? With like, for sure. If you're not paying for, you know, sponsors and boosting and all this kind of stuff, then it's like, you might, you know, 10 people might see it, or, you know, 200 people might see it, or nobody might see it. So it's like, you can't really, you can put it out there and just like, it's nice to share it, and whoever sees it, that's great, you know? And it's like, you know, whether it gets, you know, 10 comments or 1,000 comments, like 10 likes or 10,000 likes, like it's nice to just share, like you said, what is inspiring to you or what's meaningful to you, and it could inspire somebody else too. And I feel like that's what's great about sharing on social media, and I think that's what's great about kind of the wildlife photography community is like so much of who I follow or what I see on social media is it's like great for inspiration, you know? And it's like always like uplifting and inspiring community. It's not like anybody's out there to
bring you down.
So I guess the other part of the kind of question or conversation is about the whole aspect of coming back from a trip and being overwhelmed with so many photos.
I thought you were a perfect person to talk to this because you had a period of time where like your entire catalog was that way.
And like paralysis of going through them and just and like
I feel like it's different for you now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I feel like it's also a multifaceted kind of question and answer too, because I feel like part of it is taking less photos to begin with. I feel like that's kind of a big part of it.
It's a huge part of it. Compare the first time you went to Newfoundland compared to the second time.
I feel like the first time I went to Newfoundland, and it was like a 5-day trip. Right? Right? We were not there that long. Because I think I flew in.
You did.
Right? And I think I took like 18,000 photos. And they sat there for like a year.
I know, that's crazy. And then the next year, maybe ballpark. I don't know if we remember exactly, but ballpark.
I don't know. Probably 2,000. I don't know, 4,000 maybe.
I was going to say, I feel like for me
maybe
it was
4,000.
Like 4 to 5 somewhere in there,
maybe
right?
4 to 5,000.
So almost
and Newfoundland's always amazing, right? Like it's always going to be amazing. And it's always going to have great great experiences, cool stuff, like great birds, like So
so let's talk about just that little part of it real quick. I think, you know, and I say this from experience of all the workshop participants that I work with.
Because,
90% of them or more are all at the max frame rate of every camera that they have, like whatever camera they have, whether that be 10 frames a second, most of them 20 now, and plenty of them 30.
Yeah.
And they're shooting everything at that. And I'm not going to sit here and say there's not a time and a place for that.
Sure.
There is, right? If we're shooting these seabirds,
and
specifically like the MERS and stuff like that, and maybe puffins flying, right?
Right.
And they're zipping by. I mean, these things are tiny and fast and like rockets, right? Then maybe you want to try and increase your odds of getting just the right wing position and stuff. So at least there, I get it.
Sure.
But when you have the bird just sitting there, not moving, and you're locked in on focus, and you're shooting 30 frames a second on that thing,
then you're going to end up with a lot of photos.
The problem of the paralysis after the fact. Like, that is a time to stop doing it. And also, I would argue that I think, and again, it's just from my experience of watching what happens with people that are on workshops with me.
Yeah.
When you're shooting that many frames a second, you are not slowing yourself down. You are not really thinking through what you are shooting. You are not being purposeful.
Yes.
You are relying on just the spray and pray effect.
Exactly.
You really are. Like, you're just like, the bird's there and I'm just going to take as many frames
rather
and kind
than
of hope for the best.
Right, like being intentional, thinking like, okay, this, perch is here and the clouds are over here and maybe I should move over this way to kind of compose in camera.
And take a little burst of 2 to 3 photos.
And then, like, okay, he's here. Maybe he'll move, so I should grab a shot.
Head turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And like think about behavior and movement, or like instead it's just like, and like 30 of the same shot, and then 90
no compositional change.
Yeah.
And the head doesn't even move. It's just sometimes it's not even moving.
Yeah, and it's the same.
And I've
100 photos.
And I've sat with these students on the jobs, and we're looking through it, and I'm like,
and like I've done it. I've been there. I do it.
You could hold the arrow key in Lightroom and just watch it, and it doesn't even barely move.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just took 60 photos of the same
And it's
thing.
awful. It's awful. The photo's not awful. The experience of going through the photos is awful.
And now you're like,
and then you're like, oh, I got
to pick one.
And it's like, I don't even want to look at them.
But look, it went from here to here to here to here to here.
And it's like, what do I do?
Which one's better?
Yeah.
You know? The
and
reality
they're
is
all the same.
They're all fine. They're all fine.
They're all fine because it's 1 second. There are 2-3 seconds that the photos were taken.
And so with that shooting thing, I would my best advice to anybody going on a workshop or a trip, even if you're just doing it on your own, is stop shooting that frame rate for everything.
Yeah.
Be selective when you do it. If you're shooting action, and like this morning, perfect, right? The tricolored or the reddish is like shooting, like grabbing fish and striking out at it. Yeah. If I really wanted to be an action photographer in that moment and get that moment, 20 frames a second is going to help. You're going to get a bunch of different moments in that when his neck goes out, and you can pick the one where things are just right. I get it. That makes sense. But then when he's just standing in the water or slowly wading by, like 3 frames a second is plenty.
Yeah.
You know?
What did the D850 do? Do you remember?
5.
Yeah. So it's like,
I think it was maybe 4 or 5, and then you could get up to like 6 or 8 with a grip on it. You could like boost it.
Yeah.
You know
like
what I mean?
feel like that was plenty, and
and
that's what I did in the past.
What do you have your set on now? Is it the same as me?
Yeah,
6?
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 6 is enough where I can easily take a single photo.
But I also get like plenty of action.
And also, everybody, think about that. With most things that's happening, 6 frames in a second.
1 second.
That's a lot still.
Yeah, that seems like enough.
It's still a lot.
It seems like enough.
So that's my absolute best advice. And I think, honestly, for everything not action, because listen, I get so much of the action is you're not critically thinking creatively. It's just like trying to track the bird and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But for everything not that, I think you're doing a disservice and you're making your photography kind of worse in a way by shooting these high frame rates because you're relying on that to just magically make the photo better by sheer numbers. And what's going to make the photo better is you slowing the hell down and thinking through what you're shooting.
I guess that is just like also a tip just in general of
I'd say do it all the time everywhere, but especially on a trip.
But just like in general on the trip too, of like even if it's not action because if you're going on a workshop, if you're going on a trip, if you're going to a new place, like odds are you're going to be excited, you're going to be amped up.
You're going to press that shutter a lot.
You're going to be shooting new species.
Yes.
You're going to be photographing new birds that you haven't seen before, so you're going to be excited. You're going to be taking more photos already.
Correct.
Than normal.
Yeah.
So like you're already going to have more to go through just by those
factors.
Yeah. So it's like if you can be more intentional or like recognize, okay, like you can always grab a shot just for a documentary, like, okay, I have never seen this bird. but I recognize it's middle of the day, it's harsh light.
Yes.
This is a terrible perch. I can just grab a shot just because I can say I've seen this bird, but I don't need, 25 of this,
Correct.
scene.
Yeah.
Right? So like thinking about those things, while on a trip might be helpful.
Yeah.
And also, even when you're shooting in also great light or great scenes and stuff, just the aspect of slowing down, thinking about what you're doing, trying not to stay in one. I know we were talking about staying in one spot earlier, but trying not to take 700 of the same photo.
Well, you can stay in the same spot, compose it differently.
Shoot different things. Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't just mean point your camera up, down, left, right. It also means like lift up a foot, drop down a foot, slide to the left just a little, any of that kind of stuff. All changes the photo dramatically through a telephoto lens.
Right.
And that's the other paralysis I see on workshops is people get locked in and they're just they're just over and over again. And then
well, we were shooting shorebirds too, so you probably might not be shooting shorebirds
but the light won't change. It's like within a 10-minute window it's relatively the same light, and then every time that bird turns to them they're shooting the same shot again and again and again, and it's like you already have that, you don't need it again,
but once again, like I can understand, okay, this is a brand new experience, a new excitement, so it's like you almost have to work past the excitement of a new place, like all these things, right? New place,
we
new
still
birds.
Deal with that.
Yeah. Like, and
with
it's all that.
travels.
So it's like thinking outside the box, thinking of what you can do differently in the moment to get different shots rather than coming back from a trip and having 1,000 or, 10,000 of similar shots, And I think, because I feel like the more shots that you have that are similar, the more it makes going through them frustrating and annoying and like a hassle. Because it's like when you should sit through to call, like, okay, sure, if some of them are exactly the same, then you can maybe batch them and just like take one and just delete all the rest.
Sure.
That may make it easy to go delete 200 photos.
Yeah.
But it can also be like, if you can be paralyzed by, oh gosh, but like, my gosh, these ones look really close, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I should keep 10 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you do that for,
every
20 photos, then you're going to end up with a bunch too.
Uh-huh.
That's the problem. So, yeah, and it becomes really frustrating really quick.
I think all of the things you just suggested are wonderful for people to think about on the shooting side of things. So I'm really glad you brought that part of it up, because I know she didn't really necessarily mention that part of it in the thing. But
something extra to think about.
But listen, no, it's so important, because that's the step that's what causes all of this in the end,
photos.
Right?
Yeah.
But
so okay, now
is,
let's talk about coming home.
Well, right before we do, my point is all of the things we just talked about, all the different things that are happening there. So shooting less to begin with, trying different compositions, moving around, like recognizing,
not shooting the same photo over and over again,
recognizing the excitement, not shooting. All of it
yeah.
comes down to slowing down.
Yeah, slowing down.
Every single one of those things all comes with slowing down. And if you can just, this is the thing I've tried to train myself the most in my comfort areas, in the areas I shoot a lot and
right.
stuff like that. Because yeah, the excitement kicks in, it takes over,
yeah.
and then you just start shooting.
Right.
Right? But so you need to actively train yourself to consciously say, take a moment in your brain,
yeah,
or even out loud, who cares,
yeah.
and just say,
be like,
I need to slow down.
Take a deep breath, like
just say, what am I doing here?
Yeah, like think about, like slow down and think, like
instead of just reacting to all the stuff that's happening, bird.
Yeah.
Then you start like consciously slowing down things. So that's I think it's wonderful advice, and I'm so glad you brought that side of it up. So yeah, like now you get back and say you've done that.
Photos and
yeah, say you've done that. You still have 5,000, 7,000 photos,
yeah.
right? Which is still a lot, right?
Yeah.
Now what? Like you've had both experiences. You've had that huge backlog that just like it was there, especially after Newfoundland. It was there, and then we kept shooting.
It grows,
and you don't add to it. You don't narrow it down.
It just grows, and it stays, or just and then you keep shooting and shooting, and
now it's more. and then you look at that number and you're like,
right.
how am I ever going to?
Right. Or it's like you go somewhere else and you go somewhere else and it's like then it just never.
And then you just like.
You like forget about. I mean, I probably still have photos from Newfoundland of 2022 that I haven't shared yet that are nice, you know.
It's the fascinating thing. I don't know.
I mean, you have photos that are from years ago that you haven't shared yet just because of the way you share photos.
Sure.
You know, but that's not the same. They're all culled and everything.
Yeah, but I've gone through them all. I've looked at every one of them, decided I'm going to keep it, and I've actually done work to color correct it and make it look nice so that I can, and it's keyword and I can find it. Yeah. So I can just go in and look at my catalog.
I do want
to
keyword mine too.
Whatever any of my stuff is.
I think I'm going to turn more and more like you the more that we hang out.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sure they exist. I'm not saying they don't. But I don't personally know of another photographer that runs their catalog the way I do.
As well as I do.
No, and I'm not trying to say it in a braggy way, but
that's pretty cocky.
But in that way that they're like that caught up. I've just never met the others that do that.
Let us know in the comments how organized is your Lightroom catalog.
Yeah. And I have always felt like sort of a little bit of surprise of like, how have you not looked through the photos you shot? Yeah. Like, it's been baffling to me because I've always been that way. Yeah. Like, I've always been that way. Yeah. You know? And that's the thing that kind of throws me off is I'm like, yeah, you went to any of these places or even in your local pond, it doesn't matter, your local spot. Right. And you took these photos and then you put them on your hard drive and they like just sit. And you never even like looked, you maybe looked through a thumbnail. Right. And then found one.
What I used to do is, you scroll through, you do like a quick scroll.
And you kind of remember moments that were good.
You remember moments that are good. And so then you don't, like the way I used to do it and sometimes still do it is like, or I'll be like anyway, the way I used to do it, you scroll through, you see the moment that was good. You start looking through, you find one that's good, you post it, you like do a quick edit on it, you post it, and then like later on you realize there's an even better one in there, but oh well, you already posted the other one, so it's okay. And
that's you don't what I've always been like, what?
You don't even go through the rest of the photos, you just leave them there, and anyway, you move on.
So
that's the old way.
To help answer this question, what do you think are some of the things that you've changed that have helped you be a little bit more caught up? Do you think? Well,
I do think that going through the photos, like shortly after taking them, is helpful, and staying caught up is helpful.
But just practically speaking, so going through the photo. So you said you used to just scroll through them.
Yeah, no, like going through one by one.
Now going through, and as you're doing that. Are you not marking for deletion?
Yeah, so it's like you.
So that's like a big difference.
You either X them or you keep go for don't X.
Yeah, like get rid of or keep. It doesn't matter.
Keep or delete, and it's like.
But you make that decision.
And it's kind of like an instinctual thing, and I think that takes time though to be like.
It does.
It takes time to have like not the emotional reaction, anymore, and sometimes you do a second kind of go through but it feels good to get rid of the garbage.
But step one is like the biggest difference I see in your approach to it is in the past, when you would just go through the images, you'd still be going through them, but you would do nothing to mark like, let me get rid of this crap. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
You would just scroll through some thumbnails, you'd find the set that was good and you'd pick. And it's
like what do you mean? Like I would just post like?
Yeah, you would just pick out one good one and never look at anything surrounding it and mark it for deletion in that moment. Whereas now...
Well, I would delete bad ones.
In the past?
I would delete.
Oh, okay.
Like when? Like a few years ago? Yeah,
years ago is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it felt like you seek out the one that you want to share.
Yeah, no, that's what I used to do for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest change.
Yeah.
And I think what you used to do is what a lot of people do.
Yeah, you just scroll through kind of or like look through. You pick out a good one, and then you just leave all the rest there.
And so that's never...
it's only going to make your catalog grow and grow and grow if you're never going to get rid of anything.
It's never taking a moment to get rid of the really bad stuff, right?
Yeah, or then especially if you're shooting these super high frame rates, then your catalog's going to skyrocket. Yeah, which before I was using the storage on my computer...
on the internal hard drive, yeah.
Right. And so now I have the external hard drive, so it's easier anyway, but...
Yeah, that'll help for upgrading.
Yeah.
But I think that's my biggest advice for anybody in this
to
situation
actually
is
delete the photos.
to just take some, and I know it takes more time.
Well, of course. I mean, but I feel like that's the only way to do it.
It's time. You have to commit time to it.
Yeah,
that's really all there is to it.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's overwhelming when you come back, or it can be overwhelming when you come back from a trip and have those photos. And I feel like if you are on a multi-day trip, the other advice I would give is to go like tackle only one day at a time.
Yes.
So like the way that my Lightroom imports is like you can do it by
you
day.
can always do it by day.
Yeah. So like and obviously the day is going to have a lot less photos than the whole import, and
it feels less,
it's a lot less
overwhelming,
daunting of a task to do 700 photos than 5,000 photos.
Sure.
So yeah, you can easily sit down and do 700 photos in a sitting.
Yeah. But the reality is, and here's what we do. I mean,
but like 30,000 photos you can't do in one sitting, right? But you can do it day, a little bit each day over a long period of time. You can get it done.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, but the reality is, you have to go through every photo.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's what we do now. Like, we go through every photo. That's what I've done forever, and that's what you're starting to do more and more of.
Well, yeah.
And if you do that, I think.
Well, I think that's what she's talking about doing.
What?
In the question, like going through the photos, that it's like paralyzing, but that's what she wants to do, right? Jacqueline?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just mean you have to actually look at every single photo and not just like scroll through a thumbnail and pick out the best one and then call it a day.
Unless you can see if you can see like a chunk that are like clearly out of focus or something, then you could delete them. Or
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So then the last part of I think this question is, how do you pick out the best and know that? And so you mentioned a little bit more of like a gut feeling and instinctual feeling.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's going to be different I feel like that could be different for different people. I feel like sometimes there's an artistic eye that comes along with that. I might like something better than you in my photos and in your photos, I might pick something that you would delete.
Yeah.
And I might delete something that you would keep.
Yep.
In my photos, like if you were calling my photos,
sure,
there could be like 10 that I would just throw out that you would keep.
Yep.
Or that 10 that I would keep that you would throw out,
Yeah.
So that's tough.
And so my advice here is something that I learned from wedding photography. And so I'm so grateful that I did that, because that was an interesting thing. They were my photos, but they were photos of other people.
Right.
And so I had to, and it took me time.
I feel like that's tough too, because
it took me a year or two.
Yeah.
To get this mindset to get rid of this mindset of, well, they might like this better.
Yeah, I feel like it's different with people.
It is different,
yeah.
But conceptually, is it not the same thing, right? If you're paralyzed looking through wildlife photos and picking out which one's the best, is so much of that your own thing, or is it like, which one's the best when I share it? Like, how is this going to be received? Like, is it really just all like, I don't know which one's the best? I mean, I know that's what everybody says when they're looking through their own photos, but
yeah.
What is kind of deeper within that? Is it really just like you caring that much, or is it like we're all going to probably share these photos? And so
right.
I feel like there's a part of that statement of, I don't know which one's the best in this series of my own photos. Part of that connects to, I feel like the rest of that is, I don't know which one's the best that people are going to like the most when I share it. Like, I think that's part of it. I'm not saying that's all of it.
Well, that's weird, because that's weird to hear you say that, because it's also like you're, 20 minutes ago or whatever, you said also like that the only thing you share is what you like the best.
And this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I had to learn with wedding photography to disconnect from that part of it.
Right.
Of how are people going to receive this? They might like this more with weddings, right?
Well, that's a big part of it then.
And so that was what changed for me, right? And I was able to work through that process and just start to understand and have this mindset of, with my wedding photography, it was like, they're hiring me because they like what I've seen. I've put out on my website the photography that I like to capture, that I like to share, that I like to produce, right? The more thoughtful, different creative compositions, that's where I learned it all, smaller and frame stuff, right? Not just like everybody lined up, sitting there grinning and looking at the camera, right? I know that's part of wedding photography, but that's not the stuff that inspires me and brings me joy. And so I've shared that out there. They've come to me because they've seen what they like on my website, and they've hired me because of that. So that means I can now cull and narrow this wedding down with that same mindset of I'm just going to give them what I like to capture here. And I guarantee you every single job, if I delivered them the entire set of everything I shot, they would of course have photos in there that I deleted. Right. That they would have been like, I love this. Right. But that's my job as the photographer.
Right, to choose.
Is to narrow it down. Yeah. Right? And so like that could be paralyzing.
Right.
If you're sitting there like,
oh my gosh.
But they might like this one better.
Yeah, like their arm might look better or
they're paying
whatever.
me $5,000.
Yeah.
And but what if they like this one better and I'm about to delete it?
Then you'll be sitting there for hours.
Exactly.
Or
so
months
I got
or whatever.
good at just saying, you know what? You're hiring me for my expertise.
Right.
And my expertise is also in narrowing these down and giving you the best of set.
Right.
And then I just started doing gut on it.
Right.
It's like,
I feel like
what like appeals to me right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I just went through it, right?
Yeah.
And that same aspect of that gut feeling
yeah.
applies to this. And I think so much because if we think about how everybody's viewing these.
It's a gut. It's like a 2 second or a
Not
half
even.
A second.
How
yeah.
quick
like,
is somebody giving that photo
a yes
when
or
they
a no?
See it, to spend more time with it and
yeah.
enjoy it. It's
yeah.
a split second decision.
It is.
So
yeah.
in my mind, if you're going through your photos and it takes you more than a second or two to go, is there something here? You've already lost your audience.
Yeah.
They're gone.
But also who's your audience, should be your audience first is you, right?
And yes, and so why not just, in a set of, especially from a workshop like that, if you went through every photo, you're going to be like, nah, this doesn't do it, nah. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the photo to keep.
Yeah.
You just decided right there.
Yeah.
And if you have to sit there and deliberate,
then it's like,
if this one's
not
better
worth
than
it.
not, it's not worth it. Just pick one and go. Because at that point, if you're deliberating back and forth between 2, 3, 5 photos that are all similar, and it's hard to choose, guess what? It doesn't matter. There's no obvious thing there. There's no feeling that you're getting that's saying like, this one is the one. And so they're all so close that you could just close your eyes and point and randomly pick one, and they're all going to be that ballpark quality. And for me, a lot of my culling is I do that in the first pass of just like, no, it's not doing anything for me. It's not doing anything for me. And then the second pass is, there's a little bit of a deliberation here, but I just keep going to this one. And like, do I need to keep the rest of these? No, because I'm going to go shoot more.
Right.
I'm going to do, I'm just ruthless with it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I've definitely gotten very ruthless.
That's why almost.
But I feel like that also takes time. So it's like.
Of course it does.
Yeah. It's like when you start out, it's harder. Mm-hmm. And then the more you do it, the more cutthroat you can be with your own photos.
For sure.
Because it's like, and I feel like this could change from person to person too, but there's definitely that sentimental attachment.
Of course.
And especially if a trip is attached, there's there's always moments. It's like our life experience that's attached to these photos, right? We were there, we were doing something, we were capturing the moment. So, of course, there's some sort of connection that we have to this moment in time that we have captured, right? So there's like a connection we have to them. So if you can sever that a little bit.
And time helps.
Yeah, time can help. So it's like, if it helps to wait a month or a week or...
I would say probably not a month, because then you're on to the next thing.
You might be, depending how much you travel or do photo trips or do whatever. So maybe a week,
It in the end, to be really good at this stuff, it all comes down to, I was trying to say it on one of our other shows we were talking about.
What, I cut you off or something?
No, you didn't cut me off. I couldn't come up with a word. Remember I kept saying we tried to come up with the word?
Discipline.
and you finally come up with it. That's what you have to be, right?
Yes.
That's what I would consider my greatest...
In every aspect of your life.
That's what I would consider my greatest trait of what I do.
Why you run your business, how you run your business.
Photography.
Is
discipline.
Yeah.
It all comes down to that. It's like, I don't have a boss telling me when I have to do stuff and everything. Like, I could just be out here for now, for the next week and just go shoot every day and never call, never share.
Oh my
none
gosh.
of that stuff, right? I could do that.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be like, you got to change that.
Yeah.
Right? And so it really just does come down to discipline and setting aside that time. And I know we're lucky. Like, this is my job and a little bit of yours now.
Yeah, since you make
as
me
you
do
share
all this.
More and more of these. Well, and a little bit of this pressure has forced you to be a little bit more on top of your calling and more disciplined, right? And in the end, I know in the moment sometimes
it's a good thing. You're making. I want to do the captioning or whatever it's called, the tagging.
And so, but I guess you can share with the audience. It's a good feeling in the end.
No, it is. It is. It definitely is.
But
it definitely is.
It's sometimes required, in this case, a little bit for you, the outside pressure of like,
this is my boss.
I'm like, well, we're trying to do some of these shows and put them out in a timely fashion. You know, we're not letting it be to the point of where like, oh my God, everything has to stop because we're running up on a deadline. If it's like that and we're doing some fun stuff, we're like, whatever, it'll go out next week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So the pressure isn't that high because I think that can be crippling too if you go too much. So it's finding a balance, just like everything in life.
Right.
But sometimes a little bit of that outside pressure can be helpful.
Yeah.
But you have to just set aside the time in life.
Right.
And I was going to say it's easier for us because
it's your job.
It's my job and we get to live this life and do nothing else.
Right.
Everybody else has lives,
family, job,
that kind of stuff.
So it's like if you set aside some time either on the weekend, a little bit of time at night, and like calling's easy enough if you're, watching a TV show that you've already seen or it's in the background, you don't care that much about it, like a comedy or something.
Yeah.
Or if you're listening to music at night instead of scrolling, do some culling, get on that trip that you took a month ago or a year ago.
I love what you said. And that's how you got your catalog caught up.
What, day? Doing a day.
You picked a day.
You take one day at a time, It's helpful in a lot of ways.
It is, yeah.
One day at a time.
Yeah, and if that day was a 3,000 photo day.
It might take a few days to get through that day.
But just start in the beginning.
It's okay.
It's smaller, right?
Yeah.
Just break it down into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
And work to get through it.
And it might take a few passes to get through that day.
Of course.
But then other days are going to be easy.
Yeah.
So shorter to go through, or you might even have a day with no days, or multiple.
In the end, I'm always somewhat. It's not an exaggeration when I say I'm a little saddened by so many photographers out there that have so many great photos that they could have to share with the world, and they just never get to it because they're overwhelmed with how many they shot and just don't have a system in place to get down and get through it. And I guess that's the one last little thing I'll add is come up with a system to do this.
Right, whatever works.
Like whatever it is, just come up with a system that you do the same way every time. Because if you're just if you don't have that and you're you don't even know how to begin to approach narrowing this stuff down. You know what I mean?
Right. So, how?
It's just decide, am I going to mark down everything that I'm going to keep? Am I going to mark everything I'm going to delete? How am I going to mark that? I want to mark it the same way.
Right.
I've worked with people that are like, oh, well, 3 months ago I marked everything with a red flag, but now I'm doing stars, and now I'm doing they just keep changing.
Okay, yeah.
And it's
no, I just mark it X and then delete it.
Yeah. And so that's the other little tidbit, I guess, that came into my mind that can be helpful.
That all seems too confusing, marking stars and colors and things.
I know, but people do all these different reasons, or I've had some that are they're starting just the initial cull process, trying to pick the quality of it, give it star ratings of oh, these are not that good, but these are really good. And it's that's for later.
Yeah.
Get rid of the junk
first, and then go and do your ratings in the year.
Exactly.
Get rid of the junk first.
Get to that step later because again, if you give yourself too many things to do up front, it's going to take so long. You're never going to feel like you're getting anywhere, and then you're going to stop.
Yeah, but I would say another point of this, I know this is like, that's what I was saying, it's like kind of a big conversation, because I feel like we've been talking about it for a while.
It's only an hour and a half, not too bad. Yeah.
But I feel like a good reason to do it is that it can make you appreciate your photos more.
Totally.
Because otherwise, you're not really looking at them
100%.
At all. Or you're just glancing through them, with like a quick scroll, or like, just like trying to pick out just a few moments. And it's like, if you take the time, I don't know like if in the past it's like, if I was scared to look through and like see the junk, like, I don't know, it wasn't really that, because it's like everybody takes bad photos, it's like, that's fine,
There's also an interesting thing too. I have experienced this. My ex dealt with this a lot. She struggled a lot more with culling than I did with the weddings, right? And a big part of that was, and I've experienced this, is come back from a wedding and it felt great, right? And then you start looking through and you're actively trying to pick out the junk to get rid of it.
Right.
And so that's maybe a little bit more mentally what you're noticing.
Right.
It's like the junk.
Yes.
And it's the same thing here, right?
Yes.
You're noticing like, misfocus.
Sure.
Bad exposure, bad composition,
Right.
birds facing the wrong way. So you're actively marking all that off.
You're getting rid of
so
all the junk.
You're
so then
in the
it's like
forefront of your mind.
You're focusing on that.
Is all of this negative.
Right.
But the reality is, once you delete all that,
then you're
and then look
left
through, you're like, ooh.
with all the good stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
But you have to get to that point
Right.
first. Because if you don't, if you're just sifting through a little bit casually and just noticing like, oh, bad,
Right.
I'm bad, I didn't do good, I need to do better, it's so negative.
Right.
But that is part of it, and
That's a good
everybody
point.
does it. We all do it.
Yeah, and that's fine too.
Exactly.
Like,
but
it's only natural. Like,
if you can push through that and
Right.
get to that, delete those,
right.
and now just sift through the good stuff. Now it's like, ooh, I'm struggling to pick what's good out of all this,
Like,
because it's all better.
There's so much good stuff.
Exactly,
Right. Like, look at this cool moment of this, behavior, or look at this great composition, or awesome lighting, or.
And then that goes to the last point she mentioned, the one last thing, which is, I have so many good photos, too many keepers.
Right.
Now how do I decide what to share?
And I feel like with that, it's more of like, that goes back to the gut,
Totally.
even. It's
Just
like,
share what you like.
share what,
Don't overthink it.
Your best, or like what's bringing you joy in that moment, you
Yeah.
know? Like, just share.
I think the paralysis
what's
all
fun.
comes from overthinking.
Yeah, totally.
And it's
that's
way easier to sit here and say that than it is to actively go through that yourself. It's easier said than done to just be like, stop overthinking.
Sure.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
Just go with your gut.
Yeah. Trust your intuition.
Exactly. Yeah.
With culling, with sharing, with
shooting,
life,
all
shooting.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Great topic. I hope we gave you some helpful stuff in there.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, I just thought of it earlier in the conversation, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh.
For anybody that's interested to see kind of that sort of gut instinct thing, just do a Google search or a YouTube search for my name with, I think, culling or like post-processing, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try to drop a link in the show notes. I have a video out that shows my culling process.
Yeah.
It shows me going through an entire shoot and
Probably
just
in,
like
like,
sitting
5
there going
seconds.
through it. And I think it's helpful to see like the actual speed I go through these photos, to see how quick I'm talking about when we say just gut instinct. And you do it. I've watched you.
Yeah.
You know? Like you just get through like nope,
X, and you just keep going X.
And we're not exaggerating when we say we're going through that fast. And like once you get to that level, you can go through 1,000 photos in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Probably.
No exaggeration, because you're just like go, keep, go, keep, like that. It's almost that fast when you're going through these photos. So when you get to that process and that's your normal, it's a lot easier to stay caught up on this stuff.
Right. But you have to kind of work to get to that point. So but the more you do it, the more experience you have, and then the better it gets.
Exactly. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining and listening and maybe watching. Again, let us know if you are watching this, if you're enjoying this. If you really do enjoy watching these episodes instead of just listening, we may try to see if we can figure out a way to record them a little bit more, even when I do it with Brad remotely. I'm sure we can maybe look into that. But yeah, it was fun to do.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this beautiful view as much as we do.
Yeah.
Starting to feel the heat a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting a little hungry, so time for lunch.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much, everybody.
Listening.
Talk to you soon. Hey, this is Ray Hennessy. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and got something helpful from it. I also hope you join me for the next episode. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player and help me spread this podcast around by sharing with your friends and fellow photographers. It would also be a huge help for the podcast if you could give it a 5-star rating and possibly a review wherever you listen to the podcast. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.